Steve Bannon, thanks for being with Euronews today. Let's start with the obvious question. Why are you here in Europe?
I'm here in Europe principally to learn. One of the things that I was able to bring to the Trump campaign when I came in as CEO is really, I think, a lot of practical experience of observing these kind of populist nationalist movements. And Trump did win as a populist nationalist. I think one of the things we did the latter parts of the campaign that really surprised Hillary Clinton. We ran really as populist nationalists, quite different than a traditional Republican, and she never could quite get a grasp on that, and the Democratic Party couldn't. We really reached out and played to the worker base, the Reagan Democrats, and people who had not voted for quite a while, who were working class people. A lot of that I picked up in just observing what was going on in Europe. I mean, I made a real study years before when we launched Breitbart London. In fact, we launched Breitbart London to follow this populist nationalist movement that were occurring all over Europe, and particularly it was UKIP and Nigel Farage, which was a more professional version of the Tea Party. And so here, this revolution, this kind of right-wing populist nationalist movement is different in each country. If in China they say China's socialism with Chinese characteristics, populism and nationalism is different in each country. You have in the Czech Republic with Czech characteristics, in Hungary, where we are today, with Hungarian characteristics, in Italy different, etc. So I'm here to kind of learn and observe, and every now and again, if I can give some advice or throw some of my 2 cents in, I do that.
Let's bounce back on this term that you use several times, the populist nationalist, and you used it yesterday in your speech as well. Yeah. What exactly, very briefly, what do you mean by populist nationalist? Populism
is trying to get decision-making back to the people and back down to the subsidiarity is a concept that kind of came out of Catholic social thinking, but subsidiarity, to try to get decision-making back down to closer to the people as possible. Right now, what you have in Europe and the United States, you have kind of this globalist elite, what I refer to as the party of Davos, this kind of scientific, engineering, managerial, financial elite that make all the decisions, whether it's in the city of London, Wall Street, Brussels, London, Washington, D.C. It's kind of this elitist attitude, this kind of central government mentality that they can make all these decisions, and they're much smarter than common people or people that are working class people. I happen to radically oppose that idea. I had the great fortune as a young man, after I left naval service as a naval officer, to go to Harvard Business School and to work at Goldman Sachs and to kind of be in the conference rooms or the boardrooms where the McKinsey consultants or the Bain consultants and all the M&A guys, all the smartest guys in the room from the hedge funds were all there. And I realized they had a lot less common sense and a lot less understanding of humanity than my own family did. My dad, went to high school. My grandfather was a third grade. These were, blue-collar working class people, that the working class has a much better feel for the reality of the world than the elite. So populism's that. Nationalism is a part of that, in which you look at the nation state as kind of, as Marine Le Pen calls, kind of a jewel to be cherished and polished, versus something to be overcome. I mean, the European project, what the EU has really become over the last 20, 25 years, is looking at kind of a United States of Europe, where countries like the Czech Republic or Hungary or Italy are just like states in the United States, like Nebraska or Colorado or North Carolina, instead of their own individual entities. And so I think this, in the United States, what had happened, we had become too much run by globalists, too much, and that's what Hillary Clinton kind of represented. There was this fraternity of man globally, in that the workers' interests and citizens' interests were not put at first. And so the Trump campaign completely flipped it on its head.
Let's stop a second, because we're going in all directions here. I want to come back to when you accuse the global elite, and you said that several times yesterday as well. Who is or what is the global elite? And don't you see a contradiction between what you accuse them of and the fact that you're probably part of the global elite as well? Like you said, you're former Goldman Sachs.
Just because, by the way, but just because you're smart enough to get into or fight your way into that doesn't mean that you back the virtues of it. I was able to see kind of the global elite is a collection of the corporates, international corporations, the big Wall Street banks, the hedge funds, right? It's that party of Davos crowds.
Part of that.
Well, I was there, right? And now for the last 10 or 15 years, after I ended my banking career, I've been very much, meeting Andrew Breitbart and the Tea Party movement. I've been one of the driving forces in back of building the populist movement in the United States. It's one of the reasons that the Trump campaign they reached out to me with some people who were sponsors, you know, when it was in dire straits in August, that, hey, this guy really understands the populist movement. He's done this. He understands the nationalist movement. So, yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to, you know, go to Harvard, go to Goldman Sachs. I had my own bank. I sold it to actually the French bank, Société Générale. I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to, you know, work at that level and understand it. I think it takes people who have actually been in the system that can deconstruct it, that actually can help the working class people and middle class people form an apparatus to help them take charge of their lives and take their countries back. So I'm very, very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday at your speech, there was no filming or recording allowed. Was that done on purpose? Was there a reason behind that?
I don't think that was true. It was 100 media people there.
There were media, but we weren't allowed to film.
That's what the organizers. I hope.
You had nothing to do with that.
No. In fact, okay. I hope the you know, I just had a on BBC. They did a complete 1 hour one-on-one after the this is in the Czech Republic the other day, one-on-one. I thought if we can't, we'll get the. I'd love to get the version out. I thought I did a good job in the speech in trying to explain it, but this is whatever the organizers were. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure there was media there, and I think somebody told me there's 100 media present, mm-hmm. which we've been doing interviews, you know, since last night. Today, I'm somebody that, look, I ran a media company. I like to have the fact of getting the word out from media.
Were you afraid that maybe some of the remarks, controversial remarks you made in the past, for example, when you spoke at the National Front conference in France, and you said that when people call you racist, you should wear it as a badge of honor? That was a very controversial remark.
Okay, stop, because you're about to get blown up here. I want to make sure this is in your interview. Tell me what their quote was. This is why the media has so little credibility. Mm-hmm. No. I want you to explain it to me. Why did you just take the last part of the quote? I did this on BBC the other night. Hang on. No. Walk me through what that quote was. Walk me through the build-up to that quote.
Let them call you racist. Let them call you xenophobes. Wear it as a badge of honor.
Go beforehand. See, this is why. No. It's not the quote. That's not the quote. And you on purposely are misleading people.
It's just a question.
No, it's not. You are trying to. Just be honest about what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Be honest about what you're trying. Here's the quote. Go back to the Front National, and I would like Euronews, because this is an NBC trick, mm-hmm. right? You guys are the propaganda department for the global. You're the propaganda department. And by the way, I wanted things shown. I'm glad to tell you. I'll tell you right here to your face. You're the propaganda department for the global elite. Okay. That's what NBC is. All right. And here's how you're going to get blown up. The quote in the Front National talk was very specific. I said they call Donald Trump a racist, right? They call him a nativist. They call him all this. I said, look at what his economic policies are doing for black and Hispanic people. We have the lowest, because of Donald Trump's policies, we have the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. We have the lowest Hispanic unemployment in the last 20, 25 years. I said economic nationalism does not care about your race, does not care about your gender, does not care about your ethnicity, does not care about your religion, doesn't care about your sexual preference. Okay? Only thing it cares about is you're a citizen. And I said they won't debate you on the facts. They'll call you a racist and a nativist and a xenophobe. And when they call you that, wear it as a badge of honor. And here's why. Because you can't debate the facts. So, but here's what the media does. What CNN put it up right away. Oh, call racism a badge of honor. The BBC did it the other night, and I blew her up. One of the guys in the Czech Republic did it, I blew her up. You just did it, and I blew her up. This is not lazy. We know you guys are lazy. And it's not competence. You do it on purpose. This is how you try. No, you're not. No, you're not. No. Then why didn't you do? Then why didn't you give? Why didn't you give the whole quote? Why didn't you give the whole quote?
We only have a half an hour interview. I just want to get to straight questions.
It's not a straight question.
We're giving you an opportunity here to respond.
It's not a straight question.
Yesterday you talked about that BBC interview.
Yeah.
You also referred to Dr. King, that he would be proud
very much
of
so.
Mr. Donald Trump.
Yes.
Would you care to comment on that?
I said, you know, Martin Luther King was an economic nationalist. He was very much focused, particularly to the latter part of his life. Remember, he was in Memphis when he was assassinated at a garbage collectors strike.
Very left-wing view on economics.
Well, by the way, you call it left wing. I call it economic nationalism. I think a lot of the stuff that we deal with Bernie Sanders.
It's not clear on terms. I mean, there are different things. But
no, but he was there to support workers, okay, to get a better deal.
Exactly.
He's an economic nationalist. But when I said the BBC, I said Martin Luther King. I said the policies of Donald Trump, particularly to stop mass illegal immigration, because mass illegal immigration goes on in the United States for one reason: to suppress the wages of the black and Hispanic working class. Because the capitalists and the Chamber of Commerce and all those guys want unlimited labor, okay, so they can do it as cheap as possible. And it's unfair. And it's what's hurt the black and Hispanic working class. That's been Donald Trump from day one. We stopped mass illegal immigration. And here's what you're seeing. Not only is unemployment at all-time lows and at 20-year lows for Hispanics, wages are starting to rise. Wages are particularly rising in agriculture, construction, oil field services, where black and Hispanic workers exist, and in the service industry. And that is specifically because of the policies of Donald Trump. And yes, I think Martin Luther King would be very proud of the fact that black Americans, working class Americans particularly, are now getting a shot.
And I heard your speech yesterday, and a lot of the things you said about blue-collar workers and defending blue-collar workers and the working class of America, some of these policies that Donald Trump seems to go against and hurting the working class, when you look at the repeal of Obamacare or the tax cut that mainly benefit the rich, isn't that going
What do you mean? What do you mean mainly benefit the rich? This is another thing. Tell me what you mean by that.
The tax cut that he recently got voted in Congress.
Why do you say it was for the rich? What analysis do you say that
Because
does
it's
that?
the top-
Is that just more
it's
of
the
the?
top
Is that just more?
5% who
That's just more.
benefit?
That's just more
It's
of
the
the.
top 5%
No,
who benefit from
no.
these tax cuts.
Okay.
You know
The core of the tax cut, the central part of the tax cut, was a corporate tax cut to take corporate marginal tax rates from 35% to 20%. I think it's 75% of the.
Who does that benefit?
Well, hang on. The reason we did it, it benefits workers, and here's why. The tax code, our tax code had gotten incredibly non-competitive with Germany, particularly in China. In order to get capital investment and start to build plant and factories, remember the central part of Trump's program is to bring high value added manufacturing jobs back from East Asia, back from China, also from Mexico. It's the reason we're in all these tariff fights and in all these renegotiations. You see now with Germany, we're now in this thing with EU. The central beating heart of that is to bring high value added manufacturing jobs back. We had to, whether we liked it or not, because of what happened on our corporate rate, we had to make it strategically more competitive. So the basic heart of the tax cut was a corporate tax cut principally focused on repatriation of trillions of dollars of cash from overseas, and also to make our companies more competitive. That is to build a manufacturing base in the United States, and that is going to benefit workers.
But there are also risks with the trade wars that you just mentioned about those companies that benefit from exports in the U.S. But let's move on to...
By the way, I agree with that. And, Paul Ryan's border adjustable tax, the original tax bill that was going to be contemplated, is very much along the German model of export driven. Mm-hmm. That, for a whole host of reasons, it hadn't been nurtured enough. It hadn't been promoted enough. So that tax bill, the one we were originally going to go out with, kind of crumbled, and we came back with this other one. But everything, if you look at the line of attack of everything that Trump's been trying to do, everything revolves around trying to get manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
They won't come back, no matter what you do.
This is absolutely okay. This is the point of the talk. Yes, no. Hang on a second. Once again, this is the globalist mentality. The globalists sit there and think that, because I own intellectual property or I own corporate control in one area, what I want to do is then ship out jobs all over the world to the lowest cost production place. This is the central thesis of globalism, okay? Mm-hmm. It's not correct. It's wrong. If everything's just purely about economics, if everything's just purely about the math, and I went to Harvard so I know how to add, okay, you might be technically correct, but it misses the point of what a society is. And I think it was what Trump is saying, is that a civic society is built upon, okay, a manufacturing base of workers with high value-added jobs. And that's why you guys treat it like it's some second law of thermodynamics, that this is just some immutable law of physics, that these jobs have to go there. And what you're seeing in the Trump revolution in the United States, that's not true. That's why he's now in these intense discussions, whether it's in China, whether it's NAFTA in Mexico and Canada, whether it's with the EU. You saw in the last 24 hours, they're talking about huge tariffs potentially on cars, that there is this he's a disruptor. And one of the things he's trying to do is work through a system that capital investment comes back and high value-added manufacturing jobs come back to the United States.
I mean, I really want to hear your points of view about Europe, and I'll move on to that just after. Just one more question. In your rhetoric, whenever you seem to debate, you're very aggressive with people who seem to disagree with you. Why are you so? Are you so certain that you have all the truths and that everybody else is a liar and is out there to destroy your way of thinking?
No, well, I think that in promoting the cause of populism and nationalism, I have a certain house style. My house style is to always be on the attack. Okay, I've listened. By the way, I've listened to the arguments. I can hear the other day in debate in the Czech Republic. If you go back and look at Lanny Davis, first off, our whole thesis, Lanny is a Clintonite. You know, I'm from the Trump camp. Is that we can disagree reasonably, and I think it was a very nice debate for an hour and a half. Right. We went back and forth. If you saw it, we went back. I let him have his pitch.
And we could probably talk for hours about these things, but let's try to move on.
But this is not a debate. You're asking questions. It's different.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
an
asking
interview.
questions.
Right.
I know.
Right.
I'm
I am trying to school really you. I don't have much time. I am trying to get you up the learning curve so I can understand. So
but
you
I'm
understand.
not here to learn. I'm just here to ask questions.
You should always be here to learn.
Right. You use these terms nationalist, populist, economic nationalism. In Europe, those terms may refer to a dark period. You know that Europe here went to 2 world wars. We had massive problems with these kind of policies and this far right rhetoric in the past. Do you think when you come here to Europe and you promote this kind of policies and you have this kind of rhetoric, are you playing with fire?
By the way, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're the reporter. Did the last 2 elections in Europe, in Hungary and in Italy, 2/3 of the people in popular elections voted for anti-establishment populist nationalist party? Hang on. You talk about rhetoric. Hang on. Here's what the globalists like. The globalists. To answer the question,
are you playing with fire?
By the way, did not 2/3 of people in Italy and in Hungary, 2/3 voted for populist nationalist candidates? Okay, I didn't see any riots in these countries. I didn't see any things burned down. What I saw is an active discussion. See what the globalists want? They want to all of a sudden say, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you're playing with fire." These terms are so.
Playing with fire?
Absolutely not.
No.
What I think it's doing is empowering.
It's not dangerous to promote nationalism in Europe.
Oh, absolutely not. What are you talking about? Nationalism is the reason Europe's greatness is because the nation state, the Treaty of Westphalia. Right, the nation state for 300 years built, the greatest society. By the way, it's the mother society of the United States, which became a nation.
2 world wars, and then you had the European Union, and you had to have.
Was that nationalism? Was that nationalism? I would say national. I say was that nationalism, or was that elites, right? Elites that took it on their own power to drive countries where they were. I would say if you look at the populist nationalist movement, you're shaking your head. Here's the problem. Okay, let me explain it to you then. Okay, so take notes. Because what you just tried to do is smear the populist nationalist movement. No, you're not trying to understand. Then how can you sit there and say, you guys love liberal democracy until you start losing elections? Once you start losing elections, because you're getting smoked throughout Europe, okay? Once you start losing elections, all of a sudden it's playing with fire, right? Show me where the fire was in Italy, right? Show me where the fire was here in Hungary.
What about France?
Right? Well, in France, by the way, the Front National lost.
Yes.
Right. By the way, they're not everybody.
So you see, they don't win everywhere.
I didn't say they win everywhere. And by the way, I've said from day one, in the populist nationalist movements, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have days you win and days you lose. And I also said yesterday, if you remember from our speech, just because you win one election, they're not going to sit there and toss you the keys and say, hey, what a brilliant idea. Look at Brexit and look at Trump. Mm-hmm. In Brexit, the British people voted to leave the EU. And look at the stumbling blocks that the City of London and Brussels have put up for England to leave. Okay, the establishment is not going to, the vested interest in the party of Davos, or that's not going to sit there and pat you on the head and say it's terrific, right?
So now, how do you plan on taking on the EU institutions in Brussels?
I don't plan on taking them on. I think I'm just here as an observer. I think, by the way, a perfect example is what's happening in Italy. You know, today they've actually announced the formation of the government and the sign-off of the new prime minister. And I think what you've seen there, and I think this is what's such a monumental historical day. You saw 2/3 of the people in the Italian elections vote for anti-establishment and anti-establishment parties and candidates. And what they were able to do was to put aside their differences in the traditional left-right spectrum. We just talked about Martin Luther King being a leftist. They put aside, because the Five Star Movement is a center-left populist movement, and the League, or the Northern League, is a right-wing populist movement. They put those aside and said, let's join together and be a true populist nationalist government first, anti-establishment, anti-Brussels, because we want our sovereignty back, and we'll work at our economic differences over time.
Yeah, we'll see the results, I guess, in a few years' time. But don't you think?
Hopefully, you'll see it quicker than that.
That the program that they want to put in place already, with the fact that they have a debt that's more than 130% of the GDP, I think.
But can I say something?
Isn't that dangerous economically? The policies they want to.
Hang on, okay. The dangerous policies. See, this is isn't it dangerous? Aren't you playing with fire? It's all the code words. The 130% of debt they have to their economy. Did the populist movement do that? Who did that?
The previous government.
And the previous the previous governments were put in by who?
By the Italians?
You'd be dead wrong. You've got to know more facts.
Or
ECB.
are you talking about the technical governments?
The ECB put in three. Come on, ECB put in three governments. Not elected by the Italian people. Not elected by the Italian. But by the way, that's all the center left and the center right governments, right? These are not populist governments. This was part of the crony capitalism. That this was part of the establishment.
But
the reason
to run on the debt, isn't it dangerous to run your economy on so much debt?
First off, the centralized government. Remember, centralized government in Brussels or Washington D.C. A centralized government's in the business of debasing your citizenship. Okay, central banks are in the business of debasing your currency. In this kind of central technocratic, crony capitalist. Big government and big tech companies is in the business of debasing your digital personhood. The central banks, it's the guys in Brussels, in the ECB, that have gone along with what Italy's been doing with establishment, crony capitalist governments over 20 or 30 years. The populace and the people of Italy, and by the way, it's going to be quite tough. They got a very tough road to hoe. But the Italian people are saying, we understand this doesn't work, and it can't work. We've got to try something new. But in trying something new, what the propaganda department